idea that students are responsible for the learning. We tend to continue to think of e-learning as independent learning, which is a very different thing kind of a long time ago. I mean, you still see independent learning, of course, but that's not what online learning in high school is meant to be. And so I have a lot of conversations with e-learning teachers who say the problem is that we continue to call it e-learning instead of calling it e-teaching. Because when we continue to call it e-learning, we keep putting the onus on the child to do the learning. So we think it's okay to just present them with a course, and the teacher's role becomes making sure stuff's in on time, marking it, and reporting. And that's not teaching at all. I mean, we pay markers to do that work for correspondence courses, but that's not what teaching is in Ontario high schools. That's not what we should be doing in online classes. We should be e-teaching. We should be teaching the students, not just presenting them with material. So I'm just going to share my screen for a minute, and I'll run through I'll chat for about 20 minutes about some ideas around assessment and what e-learning can look like, and then I'll come back and we'll just have a conversation about how it fits into the context of the principles in superior grade stuff, if that works okay for everybody.
Perfect. Thanks, Donna.
So I'll just share this screen.
Sounds good, Donna. Thank you.
Okay.
I did that because yesterday I kept myself open because I could back channel. Yeah. But every time Jamie paused, it would bounce back to me and see me. So.
You'd think I'd never done this before. We actually work on Google Hangout most of the time. I didn't have the window open when I started to share my screen, so it's a little bit confused.
So I like that shift though, from the E.
I like that too,
and
yeah, we just posted those positions, but it would have been nice to have actually even changed that title. And I think that's
a nice tone.
Well, it does. It sets a very different tone, and I think it's something that we need to really look at. That it isn't that sort of independent piece, and I think even our parents have that perception that, well, you're offering an e-learning course. My kids aren't going to get any support. They're just going to go on and kind of fend for themselves. So I really like that shift in thinking.
Yeah, it actually, when the teacher I was working with mentioned to me that change in language helps us rethink that whole piece so much. I thought it was a really powerful shift in the language. So I do apologize. I just forgot to separate my windows, so it wasn't allowing me to share my screen. And we should be good here. There we go, finally.
We can see it, Donna.
Perfect. Okay. So you can tell I was working on this a bit because I'm.
I don't know why I'm trying to squint at this screen.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is she saying? I have to get new glasses so bad.
I'm not really sure why. Of course. So this worked much better when I was sharing with your teachers. I'm just going to stop screen sharing for 1 second. I'm not sure why it's being really difficult, but it is. Okay.
No worries. We have patience. We are at our desks versus traveling to Thunder Bay to meet with you, so this is good.
That's okay. Okay, so we should be able to go now. Yay. Okay, you should see a slide now with the triangulation of assessment on it.
Yep, all good.
Okay, that's great. So I love this slide because it just continues to remind us that it's not about kids uploading things to Dropboxes and then marking it, that according to Growing Success, we really do need to be using observation and conversation to triangulate that assessment. And I always come back to this when people talk a lot about, how do we know if kids are cheating and copying? Well, if we provide the situation where kids are almost encouraged to cheat because all we're doing is asking them all to do the same thing and then hand in the same answers, then we have to rethink how we're doing that in online environments, right? I mean, it's more than just asking them to write a quiz or to do a worksheet. We actually, as secondary teachers, our role is to assess the overall expectations, and kids have the right to demonstrate those overall expectations in almost any way they want to. And that's one of the beauties of online learning, is because every child has access to the internet and the computer, and it just opens up all those possibilities to demonstrate that learning in lots of different ways. So when I talk about online learning and assessment, I often ask principals in particular to think about what classrooms look like on their daily walkthroughs in the face-to-face environments. What kinds of things do you see when you walk through the classroom? What kinds of activities are going on? What learning do you see happening? What do the kids look like in the classroom? Are they really excited about learning, or are they kind of not as engaged in learning as you would like them to be? And then to think about what your ideal face-to-face classroom might look like. So what would we want that classroom to move to? Because that's kind of how we think about our SIPSA, how we see what's happening, we take a good read on how things are going in the school, we're monitoring the learning, and then we're thinking about what potentially that could look like another year from now, and what are the steps that we need to get from here to there. And principals are really used to doing that. That's just part of the monitoring work. But I wonder if we're doing that for our online classes as well. So thinking about what they look like right now. So when I go into an online class, there are a couple of things that I look for. And if almost everything is text-based, so all I'm seeing is a bunch of instructions, or if the first thing I see is, your work is due on Friday, it tells me a lot about the priorities of the teacher. So if your work is due on Friday is the big message kids get when they go into that classroom, then it tells me that that's the most important thing is getting your work in on time. And that's the message that the kids are getting. Where if I go into a classroom and it's, the news posting, the thing that you see first is, I saw this great video last night, I wanted to share it with you, like look at 2 minutes and 42 seconds and see how this happens here. That's exactly what I was talking about yesterday. It's about the learning and the curiosity and how much learning the kids are doing as opposed to compliance. So what do you see when you walk into one of those online classrooms? Do you just see that text-based, compliance-based, rules-based environment, or do you see an environment that's engaging kids, that really getting them excited about learning? Because that's where we want kids to be in online environments. So one of the other pieces that I work with online teachers about is, how do you know when kids are learning? Because they're out there, and maybe we haven't thought about how we monitor that learning for each and every child. I think as a principal, one of the things that I like to monitor is what questions kids are asking. And if you look through student communications with their teachers, and unfortunately, this tends to often be only by email, which is kind of sad, because when you think about building relationships, I mean, I would never build relationships with people just through email. There's so many great technologies, like the one we're using right now, in fact, that you can use to build those relationships with kids so that learning is happening. But what questions are the kids asking? Are the kids asking, when is this due? How much do I have to write? How many words does this have to be? If that's the kinds of questions kids are asking, what learning is going on? If kids are asking questions like, can I have an extra few more days because I found this great source, I really want to read it and ask this other person questions, you get a sense of the kinds of things that are happening in the classroom, because the questions are about learning more, or being excited, or curiosity, or building that love for learning in kids, as opposed to just being compliant in the online environment. So I always put this little piece in here from Growing Success that reminds us that we can't just look at tests and exams as a measure of student learning, that we will have to look through observations, conversations, and those products. And the products can be a variety of things to make sure that we're triangulating and getting an actual true picture of the assessment, the evaluation, the reporting for the students who are in our online classrooms. This was really challenging 20 years ago. Growing Success wasn't out then, but we also knew 20 years ago when we were doing online learning in Ontario that just that stuff that kids were uploading wasn't a true picture of their learning because their parents could have done it. They could have copied it from somewhere. I mean, this was pre-Google. We couldn't just check on everything. So we were always thinking about ways to make sure that our kids were learning. And we just used the telephone. It was this old technology, but we would call kids every week and just talk about the learning they're doing. And I know when my principal asked me when I was first teaching online 2 decades ago and asked me, how do I know when kids aren't cheating? I said, I know my online kids better than my face-to-face kids because I have these one-to-one conversations with them every week about the learning that they're doing. Well, now it doesn't have to be telephone. I can see students. I can pull up an assignment and see the child, and we can go through it together. And it doesn't take very long to do that kind of relationship building. I mean, when I think in 20 years how far the technology has come and how much easier it is to do this, it astounds me that it's not happening, all the time. So how do we do that effectively in online environments? How do we do that triangulation of assessment? This is what we started to work a little bit with the online teachers about. That what can you watch? What can you see? How can you encourage your students to show you their learning for that observation piece? And how often are you pulling up the student work and having a conversation one-to-one with students or with a group of students who have constructed something? Because that's pretty simple to do now. So here are some questions that I share with teachers about how they're gathering that evidence of learning. And these are great questions for the regular face-to-face class as well. These aren't just for online learning. These are things that teachers can use in the regular classroom or in a hybrid classroom. So am I providing those opportunities for all students to provide evidence of learning in the best way they can? So do I give them a variety of tools they can use? Because every student has different learning needs. Some have special learning needs. Am I providing them with the kinds of tools or choice, at least, of the kinds of tools they can use? And most of these tools are now free. And so there's just such a huge array, but sometimes kids need to be taught which tools are available to them. Sometimes they don't just know intrinsically that, this is the best tool for me. They might need to be given a choice of tools and even be pointed to some learning around how to use that tool appropriately. But that choice of tools is really important. And when we look at our mathematics curriculum documents, we see that that's also a process expectation, that children have a choice of the tools they can use to demonstrate learning. And then what opportunities am I providing for students to act on feedback? When we set up our courses so there are due dates and then kids hand things in and then we hand it back with feedback, where in that online course are they having that opportunity to act on the descriptive feedback? How are we scaffolding the learning from the beginning of the course to the end of the course? And we have some folks in Ontario right now who do this brilliantly, and I'll share where they've documented how they're doing that kind of scaffolding through the entire course. And then how am I tracking data as evidence of progress towards accomplishing a learning goal? And notice I'm saying is evidence of progress toward accomplishing a learning goal, because in e-learning, I often see teachers who provide an assignment, provide a due date, and then the only thing that they really track is how many days after the due date it took the kid to hand it in. They're not looking at how the child is progressing on the way. So we have tools like Google Classroom right now where teachers can look at the progress of the child every day. So if you've given a child 5 days to do something, you're not finding out on the 5th day they didn't start. You know the first day that they haven't started. You know what students you need to go in and support to get them started. They might need an extra question. They might need a resource. They might need just to be reminded that they're doing, this is what they're engaged in. But 3 or 4 other students might be so far on their way, you don't have to waste your time in engaging with them right now because they're well on their way. So we have lots of tools now that help us track progress on the way to the goal. And so how are we using those as online instructors to make sure that our kids we're not setting our kids up for failure because they don't understand the instructions and don't ever engage, and then it's too late after the due. So here is for me a Bible of really thinking about how we teach, not how our kids learn in the digital age, but how we teach in the digital age. And it's a great model because it's a free online PDF digital textbook. So they're also modeling that open learning online. But the link is there, and I'll share these slides with you. But the one piece that's really important for me right now, just as the as you think about what's possible in online environments, Tony Bates does a beautiful job in here of talking about 3 kinds of online learning. So many of us are stuck back in the first model of online learning, that is that idea that kids, as e-learning students, are independent learners and responsible for their own learning. We're going to throw stuff at them, and they have to do the stuff on time, and we'll report back. And we see so much of that, especially in our parents. Our parents think that's what online learning is going to be, because they think of it as correspondence courses or independent learning courses. That's not what we're looking for. Then there's the middle, sort of second way of thinking about online learning. And this is kind of the eLearning Ontario model, where we think it should be a face-to-face classroom put online. So whatever your practices are in high school, that's what we should see in the online high school classes. And then the third one is thinking, holy cow, I've just limited what I'm doing with kids by structures that exist in face-to-face classrooms. So I've limited by time, I've limited by trying to take that classroom and just put it online. So all the things I do in a regular classroom are just done in the online classroom, and that's what I see pretty much across the province. But there are boards who have said, oh, wait a second, as soon as we put secondary learning into online environments, all the structures are gone. We now have none of those boundaries that hold, bore kids to death because they have to sit here for a certain amount of time and listen to this. We now have the opportunity to completely change what high school learning looks like. This can be something remarkable because now we've opened up all of the constraints of time and place, and your teacher can go to the sleeping giant and from there do a Google Hangout. Well, probably not because the cell coverage is really bad. But do a Google Hangout with the kids at the sleeping giant. The teacher can take kids on field trips all over. The teacher can go to the Terry Fox Memorial and do a Google Hangout from there and talk about Terry Fox right from the memorial. I mean, there's just so much that can be done when all the constraints in classrooms are gone. But we forget about that. We still just keep trying to put regular classrooms into the online environment. So I'll leave you with that. He does a beautiful job of talking about that in here. And so this blog, nurturelearners.blogspot.ca, is just another example of one of many teachers in Ontario who have really rethought what a classroom can look like in online environments. And this particular teacher, Kathleen Peck, he's done a lot of work recently for eLearning Ontario in documenting what's possible. She sees her role in an English 4U as an English 4U teacher as scaffolding creativity for students, and she challenges them throughout their course in a very as I said, scaffolded way, so simple things to begin with, but by the end of the year, they're believing in their creativity to do all kinds of incredible responses to poetry and music. One of the ones that she uses as an example is a little girl who did a figure skating, created a figure skating routine and performed the routine as her culminating for a poetry unit that she did. And then she did a little piece on why she felt that way. But when I look at a figure skater doing a beautiful routine to music in response to poetry, I don't think of that as a typical example of the kinds of evaluation or assessment that are normally done in online classrooms. Yet why not? Because all of the constraints of being in a school building don't necessarily apply to those online environments, and so we can do so much more. So thinking about online learning as expanding what's possible instead of constraining what's possible. So here's just a piece from Kathy. So I strive to create activities which are engaging and establish community through creativity and sharing. In this way, the fourth wall of technology is removed and online students feel less isolated, if at all. Her real goal is to make the online students feel more of a community than her face-to-face students because they have the opportunity to do that. And so she chooses opportunities for students to record their work. And when they create those creative recorded responses, it fits into her observations of her students. So rather than considering these products, she has them record sort of the process that's involved in doing the work so that she has a sense of watching them in the work they're doing. And that's not something kids do right away. Like we have to, kids are into that. it takes some work. So as online teachers, we develop the skills that help kids feel confident and non-evaluative when they're doing that kind of recording of the work that they're doing. And it's almost the same as principals doing their classroom visits. We don't go into a classroom and become evaluative right away. We go into a classroom 10 times before we ever even talk about what's going on in the classroom. We need to get teachers to feel confident and okay with the principal being in there. It's not evaluative. We need to use those same skills with our online students. So we get them to record the things that they're doing, and we just, yes, that's great. You shared it with me, and you're not evaluative until they're really comfortable with doing it. So there's all kinds of things that we can develop going through that way. So I know we're getting close to the end. I just wanted to remind you that we work with Stacy to build these kinds of skills all the time. And so when you're thinking as a principal in your school, how to encourage teachers to really see the possibilities of what you can do in online classrooms and how to do that triangulation of assessment. Don't forget to connect with her, because we continue to sort of feed our telecontacts resources that they can use in building this. And I should mention as well, over the last year, we've been working with principals across Ontario to build an app for principals of online classes. And what the app does is it goes through the various components of the teacher performance appraisal, but gives examples of what good online practice looks like under each of those domains, so that you can work with teachers, not in an evaluative way, but say, here are some of the domains of practice that we like to see in teachers in general. Here are some examples of what that can look like in online environments. Let's explore those together and see how that's possible in your online class. So it's a tool for principals to use in starting to have those conversations about good practice on it. Okay, so I'm going to pop out of here, as I think we're close to about 10 o'clock.
Thank you so much, Donna. That was great. I mean, Heidi's got about 4 pages of notes. I've got my, my trusty old Post-it note full of notes. The app you're talking about, that's awesome. Is it still being developed?
So Tony has it right now, Tony Clark.
Yeah.
It's been written. It was done with a lot of Northern principals. I was really glad to see that. And then representatives of the Catholic Principals Association and OPC as well. We actually wrote most of it on Manitoulin Island in the First Nation, because we had First Nation principals involved as well. So all the writing's been done. Tony is looking at how to package it now, and the goal is for September to have that. You have it on your phone, and you can actually share with the teacher examples. And so the ones I was talking about, Kathy Pick was part of that writing as well. So some of the examples I was mentioning, you'll be able to just see on your phone as part of that app, so you can share them with teachers. Yeah.
Good. Oh, that's awesome. Well, and I think the piece is that it, like for me, it's going back to what you started with the e-teaching. And like we have classes now who have gone to, the blended learning, but I'm not sure that, well, I'm pretty sure that they're losing sight of they're seeing it as, okay, well, the kids can go on and they can work independently. I'm not sure that they're seeing, do you know what I mean? Like they're seeing it as, okay, well, here are the computers. So when you go in and, people are using blended learning, you're not seeing like different things happening in terms of different tools that might be out there or different pieces. You're seeing kids in front of computers and they're working their way through tasks that are just basically, a written task and written response. And like, I'd love to say that, our classrooms have evolved, to get past, textbooks and questions and, but that's still a work in progress. And, ideally in my world, I have in my head, what I would love to see, but it's, it's a slow process to work people through that. But I think that, this is applicable to not only the our e-learning teachers, but also a reminder for our teachers, again, that whole environment piece. And what does your environment look like, and that whole shift and
the whole idea of triangulation of assessment for the classroom teacher.
Yeah.
Right. Like you don't hear that phrase very often. And so I think that's important too, because again, it's not separating It's not separating good sound pedagogy and good classroom practice. It's not different than, in the virtual learning environment than in the traditional classroom, right? So those great skills transfer over. So we're having a conversation about e-teaching, but this conversation, like Heidi's saying, applies to all teachers in the building.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And thinking about sort of what tools kids can use, but it's for learning. It's not like the idea that we would just put soul sucking text online. There's no point in that. Like there's really no point, except that for teachers they see it as a way. Well, it gets these kids who will read it and do it off my back, right? Like it's just not. When you're thinking about kids and engaging them in learning and getting them excited about learning and curiosity, that's what we want the online stuff for, because it allows each kid to demonstrate the expectations in a way that's meaningful to them. So it gives them that opportunity to go off and grab the exciting things. So I worked with a biology teacher who's now a principal and actually did some of the writing on the app for us. But he was incredibly, assignment, 7 marks for this, 3 marks for this, 4 marks for this. And I said to him, would you want to be in that class? Like, would you go on and become a biologist when you this is how you think biology is? Read this, answer these questions. And he just went, oh my gosh, like I love biology, but I'd hate it if I did this. But then his thing was, it was an assignment on enzymes, and I'll never forget it because it was just this aha moment when he realized that he wouldn't even want to be in his own class. And then he said, yeah, but it's on enzymes. And I have these girls that are just like fashion. I can't get them interested in science no matter what. And I said, well, enzymes in the leather industry, do you think, like, how do you get from animal hide to leather for those beautiful boots that they're wearing? Like, get them that way. And it worked. Like he said, I have to find something that interests them. And then he said, you should see the stuff they're doing. And he said, I let them go online and they just researched and they said, sir, can we do this? And sir, can we do this? And there's those questions, right?
Yeah.
Can we do this? Yeah. There's the questions they're asking. It's not when's it due. It's can I do this?
Yeah.
And
can I? Yeah.
Really, those relationships, getting to know your learners and what excites them, and how can you take those overall expectations and make a rich task in a way that has lots of entry points, and so all those kids can meet the expectations in ways that are exciting and meaningful to them. And the possibilities online are endless, but you've got to get to know your learners first. They can't just be a name and email. You actually have to have conversations like this with them and say, tell me what you do, tell me what you like, build the relationship first, so that when you're building out your rich tasks, which don't come from a course that's been posted online for everybody to use, they come from you designing it for your learners. When it comes to that, you've got kids who are going to buy into it. I heard somebody say, I think it was Kathy Fosno actually, somebody say spray and pray last week, where they thought of the way we teach high school is spray and pray. We just spray it out there and we pray it sticks, right? And that's what I find a lot of the e-learning courses are. Somebody else made them up, and we just seem to think it's okay to hand them to a teacher and use them, where if you were in a regular classroom, you would be developing content. I have one teacher I work with, and I said, I don't think there's a course written for that piece, like written. He said, wouldn't you get the kids to write the content? And I thought, yes, you would. That's exactly what you would do. Give the kids the topics and build a wiki and get the kids to write the content, right? Because it's the content that excites them. Yeah. So there's so many ways that we need to kind of jump out of that mindset we have about e-learning, and if we can switch into teaching, we might start down the path.
So I like the idea, that you keep going back. It's relationships. And I had written down here, just as a reminder to anyone who watches this video again, and to myself when I review this video the start of next year, the soft start is still really important for the start of e-learning. So we all have different start dates across NELC based on where our boards are, right, for their start dates. But we have a week of soft start, which means we really don't delve into the curriculum right off the bat. We have kids who come to us who've never done an e-learning or a blended course. So the platform itself needs to be learned. But, you said, there's a whole bunch of tools out there that are available to us. So, that's when you start using the Google Forms. If the kids aren't aware of how to build a Google slideshow, Google Hangouts. So you're sort of, and then I'm trying to get across to the teachers during the soft start is that it's not about, today we're going to learn how to use Google Hangouts. It's I want you to come into a Google Hangout and let's just have a conversation. So it's building the relationships for that, for that startup, so that you can personalize the learning and have a sense of who your learners are, so that if there is a question about the authenticity of something, you've got an ongoing sense of where this student is throughout the process. But what you're doing is you're also through the back door teaching them how to use the tools, which will be an expectation throughout the course, so that you don't just start to do collaboration in April or May. Oh, we're going to do a Google slideshow, and you've not touched on it all year, and then you have kids who someone's going to do all the work, someone's not going to do the work, and you're going to have chaos. It's about building those abilities to do collaboration and using the right tools. And so we still have protected that soft start, Donna, that we did a long time ago. And it's about the relationships. And there's a real urge, I think, to, because we have more and more students doing blended learning and e-learning, that transition period, they want to shrink it. Like, let's get right into the curriculum. But I'm still holding fast to make sure your tools are covered, but make sure you know who your learners are. Because when you have a strong classroom community, those discussions that we want for our students to organically engage in will be much more easier to happen than if you say, okay, here, do a posting and then respond to 2 others. And then you're saying, well, the kids don't go in if I don't mark it. Well, yeah, because they have no connection to each other. They're not willing to help each other and throw out those big questions, because there's a vulnerability there that they're not really trusting of the school or that e-culture in your class, because it hasn't been developed, right? Like, would you open yourselves up to a room full of strangers very willingly? That's hard, even as adult learners, right? So the soft start that we've always used is I'm really trying to protect that as a chance for the relationships to be built. And then again, at the end of the soft start, when the curriculum starts, you don't end the relationships, and you don't develop those relationships through one Google form. Tell me what you like to read. Tell me what you like to eat. And then, okay, I know Stacy likes to eat pizza and she reads detective books. No, that gives you some insight, but then, do a Google Hangout and say, you know what, I just read this really awesome book about this too. Have you read this author? Like, just continuing to build on it. It's not like a 5-day strategy and then that's it for the rest of the semester, right? And anytime I talk to the e-teachers, I just keep putting it back to, what does your regular classroom look like? I would hazard a guess that on a Monday, after something exciting has happened, the kids are talking about something and you engage with them. So have those opportunities in your online class too.
Yeah, so critical. And when I think about my last, I teach the e-learning, just so Heidi knows, I teach the e-learning AQ for Queens. And so in my last group, which was back in the fall, we did Google Hangouts each week. And I had one candidate who refused to do it. I don't remember anything about her, but I still remember all the other candidates so well, because I'd sit out on the deck and we'd have a chat for half an hour about the work that they're doing. But what I also noticed from that is that they have to build an orientation course as accommodating for that, and their orientations courses changed. They had just piled them full of content to start, and by the end they were saying, we don't need all the content, we just need to talk to the kids. Yeah, you do. That's it. Great for them to refer back. But if you instead took the time, instead of it being the kids needing to do, if instead you said, I've got a lot to do that first week because I have to build relationships. So I need to meet those kids, give them lots of opportunity for group Google Hangouts, and give them lots of opportunity for individual, FaceTime, Skype, whatever tool they want to use. And that's your work in the orientation. Like that's usually your work. We have to shift thinking. Like there's a whole shift in thinking. This comes out of Singapore, which is one of the highest PISA scores, and they compare our work as teachers in Canada as we spend hours and hours and hours preparing content for kids, right? We do. We write our units and we take the content and we make worksheets and we do all this stuff, and then we bring the kids in and we stuff them with this content. And the kids are like, oh, I hate this, right? They liken that to a mom who cooks tons of food for their child and tries to stuff it in their mouth, and there's like, no more, I'm full. And they say we should be chefs. We should be brilliant chefs instead, and create these curious, enticing little pieces of food that we give to our child. They're going, that's amazing, I want more. It shouldn't be just more work. They keep talking about how teachers work too hard at stuff that has low traction, doesn't stick, right? We should instead be working really hard to build the relationships, spend that time before the course, not prepping all the content so it's perfect, but building the relationships with the kids so you can ask them to go out and learn things and share back. Let them create the content, right? Let them create the content that's important to them, because there's such a strong relationship with you and the other people in the course that they want to share their learning, they want to be curious, they want to engage more. So it's a rethinking, not just in e-learning, but a rethinking of teaching in general. There's lots I can share with Stacey. There's lots of documentation of that, but it was a real aha moment for a bunch of us that went to learn about this, that Singapore has completely rethought that content delivery model, and it's that curiosity building model that they're using instead, and their teachers are much happier.
I'm sure they are, and really, like, I keep I'm being back in secondary, but my experience that I had with early learning, and the play based, and the inquiry and what kids are doing, and as that's trickling through into grade 1 and grade 2, you see that kids are learning far more than they possibly could have, a teacher could have imagined that they would have learned had they been the one that was sort of scripting out what the kids were doing. And it is going to be, it is a shift for our teachers, and it's a challenging one, because they don't want to let go of their content. They like you talked about, like tests and and cheating and copying, and and when they'll talk about that, they like, we've had conversations with, well, everybody has to write the exam on the same day. And I'm like, well, why does everyone have to write the exam on the same day? Because if the questions are rich and authentic and are based on a variety of different things that have happened in the course, then you shouldn't have any worry about them, a student walking out of there and saying, oh, well, the question was, we had to label, 4 diagrams, and, tell da 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 da. Like, it's hard, and it's a little frustrating, because I know it's not easy, but and the work we have to put the work in. But like you say, we've got people spending a lot of time on things that are just not, they're not high yield for our kids.
Yeah,
so
nobody questions how hard we work. I mean, educators work really, really hard. It's just trying to get them to understand that the way they went to school and the way they were taught and what they excelled at isn't the way that's working for our kids anymore. It's a big shift in thinking, because we all do that, right? We were all good at school. We come out and we teach just the same way, because that's how school should be. That's the right way. But I know Finland takes puts a lot of effort into pulling that out of teachers and trying to explain to them that the way you were taught is not necessarily the way that's going to work 20 years later. Those kids are going into a world that's very different from when we were 5 and 6 years old, right? It's got a lot different from the world today. And but that's a huge shift, because we all think we were good at school, we played school well, or we want our kids to play school. And I just want to address, before we go, one thing that I've been talking about with Stacey and some of the other telecontacts is that the old delivery method of e-learning, that sort of correspondence method, we've trained our kids to excel. That's kind of what they expect, because we've trained them to expect that. And you get pushback once you change that. One of the things we know is that the people who have the most to lose from change will push the hardest. And so our high achieving kids who love that text answer because they know they can get 95 on it, will push back against that more open, pursue your dreams, curiosity, relationship building stuff, which they worry then that they're not going to get the marks. So just be aware of that. But we've trained those kids that's the hoops you need to jump through. It doesn't mean that we're responsive to their learning. It just means we're responsive to their need to get a 95, right? So it's
right.
There's so much pushback from parents. Basically,
tell me what I need to do, and I'll do it for you.
Yes. Sir, that 88, that's not going to work. You're going to need to give me something to get the 95. That kind of.
For sure.
Well, do you have other questions? Or?
No, I don't think so. Well, I know where you are. I mean, I can get to you on Twitter and whatnot. So I follow you regularly. So yeah, no, I don't have any further questions. I just think that when I saw that you chatted with the e-learning teachers, I'm thinking this is a dialogue that, as administrators, we need to, be keeping up on this whole world. And this has been very enlightening this morning with the nice background, the picturesque background that you have there. But yeah, okay. No, that's great. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you so much, Donna. And you're going to share that slide so I can send it out in the email? Oops.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for giving up time this morning and for speaking with us.
Okay. Have a good day.
Bye. Okay, bye, Donna.